several people have touched on the need for the creation of a new culture and that is based around interconnectedness and recognition of our shared aliveness rather than around greed, extraction, and fear, which is what sort of the emerging global culture seems to be based on. And so I'd really like to just throw in here a little bit about the San Pedro cactus specifically, because I really think it's a medicine that I would almost call it the medicine of culture or the medicine of relationship, because it is a medicine that is very deeply connected to our relationships with each other, with the land. And, you know, really what happened 4,000 years ago in the Andes was sort of another big change of worlds. In the Andes, they call the world turning over Pachacuti from one era to the next. You know, it's happened many times in the past. It will happen again in the future. And, you know, 4,000 years ago in the Andes, people started to work with the plant. They started to work with San Pedro, and all of a sudden, just there was this blossoming of social organization, of art, of interconnectedness. All of these nomadic warring tribes throughout the Andes united in this great network of religious pilgrimage called the mother culture of the Andes, Chavin. And at the very center of this religious cult was the San Pedro cactus. You know, you go to the primary temples and there are stone carvings of shamans, of multi-dimensional, multi-species beings holding the plant, working with the plant. You know, it was all centered around San Pedro. And so, you know, I'm not the first person to suggest that, you know, the Andes, which, you know, was the third cradle of civilization on Earth. So civilization was independently developed there after Mesopotamia, after ancient Egypt, but it was one of the earliest cradles of civilization. And it was because this culture, this new emerged interconnected culture, which was people were taking pilgrimages for 2,000 miles to visit these temples. You know, it was built around San Pedro. San Pedro was sort of the crystal at the middle of it, around which constellated human beings in relation with their ecosystem. And the second part of that, so the first part, social organization, and the second part of that is the relationship with climate and climate change that San Pedro brought to people. Another name for the plant is Agua, which means water queen or queen of the waters. It's a hybrid Spanish Quechua word. And so San Pedro really taught people at that point, I believe, and many others have suggested that to flow water in different ways. They invented irrigation. They started working with the mountain gods, the Apus, to control rainfall, earthquakes, landslides, and to come into relationship with a very difficult, very unstable climate that was very difficult to live in. And so in many ways, you know, we could almost say that San Pedro taught people how to live together in a changing climate and environment. And so I'd just like to suggest that, you know, there may be a reason that sort of the really punchy psychedelics, ayahuasca, toad, and the sort of sterile rocket fuel of synthetic psychedelics have been so interesting to our culture, because that's what we like. We like to just, you know, punch through the brick wall and go and get there immediately. But I'd just like to suggest that, you know, San Pedro is a sort of a warm water that seeps up from below. It's going to come last to the party, but it's going to be the last one there. And I really believe that that plants have the ability to teach us how to live in our environments and with each other in ways that we could not invent on our own. I think the future society, this future culture that many people are touching on, is not a human culture, but a human and more than human culture that is centered on the intelligence of the living world taught to us by plants.